I would definitely agree with the majority. Your essay doesn't have to highlight a huge accomplishment of yours. And that kind of ties into this misconception we have of what constitute, a scholarship winner. Oftentimes we think students who win scholarships were super kids who were child prodigies and started international organizations and saved a small country along the way. In reality, everyday students win scholarships every day. So you really just have to believe in yourself. And in terms of what you talk about, your accomplishment, if it made an impact on one person or just on you, then that in and of itself is an accomplishment. So it's never the matter of something having to be on an international scale in order for it to be relevant and valid. Now, when it comes to the topic, it's something you really want to focus on, simply because if you don't choose the right topic for your essay, then you're at a disadvantage from the get-go. Now, in terms of the topic, you want to make sure that you identify something that's unique about you. Maybe there's something a little different from the average student. So say you volunteer at a certain summer camp every summer, or say you're in a certain club at school that does all these interesting projects. Just pick something that's a little different because that can help make you stand out. Now, what you also really want to focus on is that you choose a topic that highlights your strengths. So for example, if the essay was asking you to discuss an activity that you're passionate about, say you're passionate about online gaming, which is totally fine. However, when discussing online gaming, that may not provide the appropriate platform to truly highlight all of your strengths as a scholarship candidate. So what I mean by that is you want to choose a topic that reflects the major themes that committees tend to look for in scholarship winners. So in terms of what those themes are, committees are often interested in students who are well-rounded, demonstrate initiative and leadership, and are involved in their school and or their community. Now, when you think about it, it makes sense. They're interested in these things because they want to make sure that they're giving you this money to invest yourself into your university experience and invest yourself in society afterwards. So they want to see that you're already thinking that way and kind of along that path. So as you're choosing a topic, keep these 3 points kind of, again, in the back of your head and make sure you pick something that allows you to highlight these strengths and qualities. And then finally, it's incredibly important to choose a topic that you are passionate about. Now, it's important for a few reasons. If you're writing about something you care about, one, it's a lot easier to write an essay on a topic that you're interested in. And two, if you write about your passion, that passion can shine through your essay to the person who's reading it. So that way they just get a better sense of who you are and what you're all about, and it will help you craft a stronger and more memorable scholarship essay. Now, in regards to the essay itself, the introduction is a critical component. It's not something you want to overlook. Your goal is to immediately captivate your reader. You want your intro to pop off the page so they're immediately drawn in and so they're interested in what else you have to say. Now, a very common mistake that students tend to make is they simply regurgitate the essay question as the first line of their introduction. So for example, say the question was, discuss the role education's played in your life. Your essay 560, and you start off with, education's played a very important role in my life. It's not really going to captivate them. It's kind of going to blend in to their 559 essays that they just read. So you want to make sure that there's something unique and different about your intro so they'll remember you. And there's a few different strategies you can use to make that intro pop. Now, one of my favorites is to tell a story. Now, telling a story is a really powerful tool. What it allows you to do is immediately make it original and add a personal element. A great way to immediately inject your personality and your voice into your essay. Now, what do I mean by telling a story? A few different routes you can take it. For one, you could simply discuss an important moment in your life. So if you're going with that, it could sound something like this. His gift safely tucked under his arm, the man heads toward the door. He sees the girl. A smile creases his weathered face, one familiar with the touch of Father Time. He extends his hands, enclosing the girl's with his frail fingers as he says, "Thank you." I have never forgotten that man, nor the others like him I've met over the past 8 years through the Feed the Less Fortunate program. Now, in terms of what moment to talk about, you want to choose a moment that was important to you. So maybe it was a moment that made a difference in your way of thinking, changed your perspective, really validated something that you were doing, just anything that's important to you. Now after you do that short little story, you always want to make sure you have that connecting sentence. So you need to connect the story to the actual topic, and then that provides a really good transition to dive into the event itself. Now, aside from an important moment, you can also tell a story by simply taking a topic and transforming it into a narrative. So again, another example, if you're writing an essay about how you enjoy being in choir, instead of saying that you love the feeling of being on stage and singing in front of an audience, you could turn that into a narrative and say something like this. A calm settles over me as I step onto the stage. The glow of the spotlight warms me as I look over the darkened audience. Butterflies slowly fade as I raise the microphone and sing the first note. Music is my vehicle for expression that has made an incredible impact on my life. So you can see how saying something like that is a lot more powerful than saying, I like choir. Now, if you're kind of struggling on how to get a narrative going, a really great exercise would be just to write a straightforward introduction. Just kind of do the basics, what you want to say, and then after you've done that, look back over it and think of how you can turn it into a story. That could be an easier starting point for you to get the creative juices flowing. Now, in addition to starting with a story, another really powerful way to start off your scholarship essay is by a strong statement. So what you want to do is start off with an assertive statement that's clear and concise. What it can do is just really pack a punch in a short amount of words, and by doing so, you can just set the stage for a powerful essay. So if you're going with a strong statement, you could go with something like this. I am a dedicated leader. Throughout my high school career, I have evolved into a community-minded individual with a passion for creating positive change within my school and community. Short, simple, but packs a punch. Now, as you're working on your introduction, don't feel like you have to follow that rigid guideline that you often learn in school. Your scholarship essay introduction, you don't have to summarize everything you're going to be talking about in your essay. You're often working with 500 words or so if you only have 500 words, you don't want to waste 60 of them explaining what you're going to be talking about. So what you can do for the introduction is a few quick sentences just to add some intrigue, draw them in, and then you can dive into all those important little details. Now, just to demonstrate the incredible impact and difference an introduction can make on a scholarship essay, we're going to be going over 3 different examples. Now, all 3 are an answer to the same question. Discuss an activity that you're passionate about and why. And all 3 also have the same topic, being a member of the school football team. So if you had that question and you were talking about being on the football team, if you're writing an introduction where you simply regurgitated that essay question, it would sound something like this. I'm a player on my school's football team. I attend practices where I train and work alongside my teammates. I play in weekly games and enjoy being on the field. Football is something that I am passionate about. So while this answers the question, it's a little bland. You want to inject more of your personality in there and make it stand out. So if you took all that exact same information and simply turned it into a narrative, then you can transform it into something like this. I hear the dull roar of the crowd in the background as I sprint down the field. Alert and ready, I feel the adrenaline rush through me and anticipation tingle down my spine. The thunder of cleats echoes behind me as the ball falls into my hands and I focus on my destination. With the final burst of energy, I cross into the end zone. Touchdown. This is football and this is my passion. So you can see how that's a lot more impactful than the previous introduction. However, using the same base information, just by turning it into a story, it can just add another element to your essay. Now finally, if you went the strong statement route. The field is my second home. Football is ingrained into every aspect of my life and has shaped me into the dedicated leader that I am today. Through endless hours of grueling practices, studying playbooks, and building team relationships, my commitment to the sport has transformed into my true passion. Now clearly it definitely has a different tone than the story introduction. However, it's just as powerful. It's impactful, it's to the point, and it gets your message across. So that kind of gives you an example of the incredible difference that your introduction can have on your essay. So what can be a helpful exercise for you is to have 2 introductions on the go. So perhaps one that's a story and one that's a strong statement. That way, as you encounter different applications, you can kind of modify them and tweak them and interchange them as necessary. Now, when you're asked for a letter from a committee rather than an essay, it's usually not something to stress out about. Often they want the exact same information that's in your essay, simply in a letter form with "to whom it may concern" at the top of it. Now, when it comes to letters, a strong statement tends to flow a little bit better, so that may be a better route to go when you encounter an application that's asking you for a letter. Now, in addition to the introduction itself, there's a whole framework that you want to build your scholarship essay around. And what I find works best to focus on is to reflect on how experiences have impacted your life. So what I mean by that is that throughout your essay, you want to make sure that you're focusing on what you've learned from an experience, how you've used those skills in other areas of your life and the positive impacts of that, and finally, how you plan to continue to grow with those skills at your post-secondary institution. So this is an important kind of thread to build your essay along, simply because that's really what they're wanting out of a scholarship essay. They want to see that you have the ability to learn new skills, use them in different ways, create positive results, and finally that you have a future plan in place. So essentially with that third aspect there, you want to make sure that you demonstrate that to them, that all these experiences you've had throughout your life have built up to the point where you're fully prepared to continue to grow and develop as you begin your university career. Now, in regards to that future reference and building it all together, binding it all together rather, that's where your conclusion comes into play. Now, conclusion is just as important as your introduction. You want to make sure that you don't throw away your conclusion. You want to finish strong, leave a lasting impression so they remember who you are. Now, your conclusion is your opportunity to reiterate your strengths. So again, reinforce those key skills and qualities that you've discussed throughout your essay, and then make that future reference. Really make sure that you include that aspect there, because you want to kind of give a proper ending to the story that you're telling through your essay, how this all built you up and made you ready to continue into this next stage of your education. Now, in terms of how that future reference could sound, you can make it sound something like this. I see only potential for growth within myself. By nurturing this through my years at university, I have the utmost confidence that I will cultivate my place in the world and continue to bloom as a community-minded individual, inspired by the possibilities and devoted to exploring them. So again, just reiterate those strengths and just make it clear to them that you're ready to continue on to this next stage of your education. So always have that running through the back of your mind about having that future reference come into play as you're building your conclusion. Now, in regards to that future reference, also comes into play future career path. Now, before we dive into that topic, I'm going to hand it back over to Scholarships Canada, and they're going to launch another poll question for everyone.